Good morning. Continuing with the theme of the Army Commanders Conference which is going on in Delhi, in my first and the earlier video, I spoke about the real threats that the Army Commander should consider which India faces. In this video, I will talk about, based on those real threats, what sort of a war Indian military and the Indian Army needs to prepare for. And this I will do under 4 subheads: complexion of war, character of war, nature of war, and the competing defense industrial complexes. But before I go there are 2 things I wish to underline. When I talk of war, because after all what India faces are clear 2 tangible military lines. I am only talking about state on state war. I am not talking about here irregular wars. I am not talking about counter-terror operations here, proxy war. I am not even talking about a irregular organization like Hamas fighting a medium power like Israel. I am just talking about straight and simple state on state war. Number 2, in a state on state war, there are always 3 levels at which a war is fought. The lowest level is the tactical level of war. This is where the battles are fought, numerous battles are fought. This is where the bean counting of assets, how many guns, how many tanks, how many aircrafts becomes important, because attrition happens at this level. Then we have the intermediate level of war, which is the operational or the campaign level of war, which is the sum total of all the battles fought, and the outcome of a war is determined at this intermediate level of war. Finally, we have at the highest level the strategic level of war, which is basically doing 3 things. At the strategic level of war, the political leadership is involved. It is monitoring the progress of the campaign, the war that is going on. Number 2, it has a responsibility to ensure that the war withdrawal, unlimited supply of the war withdrawal is available to its military. And number 3, it is responsible for the strategic deterrence of the nuclear weapons, which is at the highest level. Now, having said this, let me start with the complexion of war. So, as far as 3 geo-strategic players are concerned, the big powers are concerned, let me call them major powers here, which is America, China and Russia, which one of the distinctive things they have at the military level is a vibrant defense industrial complex, so they can meet the war surge irrespective of the duration of the war. So what we have is, in case there is a war between 2 major powers, for example the war that is going on in Ukraine is the war theatre. The war is between Russia and NATO, 2 major powers. Or if there is a war between 2 medium powers like India and Pakistan, medium only in military terms I am referring to. If there is war between 2 medium powers like India and Pakistan, then the focus will always be on the tactics. Therefore, to digress, I have heard many Indian senior commanders talk about what lessons we can learn from the Ukraine war. Actually, you can't if you are talking about a war with the PLA, because that is an entirely different complexion of war, as I said, between 2 major powers, which is not the case when India will be faced with the PLA. PLA is a major power and India is a medium power. So the first thing that hits is that India has to, as far as complexion of war is concerned, entirely 2 different complexions of war. It is faced with PLA, which is a major power, and it is faced with Pakistan, which like it is a medium power. Now the big difference is that when you are looking at a major power versus a medium power, PLA versus Indian military, then the major power need not bother about the tactical level of war. It can do the campaign, it can start the campaign and finish the campaign at the operational level, the intermediate level of war, for the simple reason, given its technology and superior war concept, it will have, if not total war control, it will have sufficient adequate war control to accomplish its war objectives. Case in point, the 1991 Gulf War, Operation Desert Storm, which was fought between the US military and the Iraqi military. We know that it started and finished at the operational level, where the US military ran a 43 days air campaign, and as far as the tactical level of war was concerned, it was confined to 100 hours of mopping operation. This is what happens when you have a major power versus a medium power. So once we have understood the complexity because of the complexion of war, let's move on to the second subhead, which is the character of war. Now, character of war basically is how a war will be fought. What are the technologies available, which is the science of war, and what are the war concepts being used to optimize those technology for a good outcome, that is the art of war. So this is what the character of war is. Now there are, because as I said, PLA is a major power, India is a medium power. So there are three distinctive things that the Indian military has to keep in mind regarding the PLA. The first is that while the Indian military will fight in three war domains, the physical domains of land, air and sea, the PLA today has a capability to fight in 6 war domains. Besides the 3 physical war domains, it has a cyber domain, it has an electromagnetic spectrum domain, and it has a space domain. It is not that the Indian military will not have the capability in electronic warfare, which comes from the electromagnetic spectrum. They will have it, but for them it will be a force multiplier and not a war domain. There is a big difference that needs to be understood. When we say that a capability is there for a war domain, that means that particular military can combat, confront, compete and manage that domain. It can open up, insofar as, let's say, the electromagnetic spectrum is concerned, various spaces in the spectrum. A capability will not be available to a military which uses electronic warfare as a force multiplier, because all that it can do is it can dovetail electronic warfare in its air attack campaign. It cannot do more than that. So it's a very big difference. Not only this, because as far as the Indian military is concerned, the Air Force will play a very important role. Now, as far as the adversary PLAF is concerned, PLA Air Force, its campaign, the air campaign, will be entirely different, because from the altitude of ground till 20 kilometers, it will have its drones. It has specialized drone units today. They are all deployed in the Western Theatre Command against India. And it will have its fighters, it will have its bombers. I've already mentioned the surge capability, so it will have as many fighters and bombers as it wants. Unlike India, where everything will be constrained and restricted. Then from the altitude from 20 to 40 kilometers, it can use its hypersonic cruise missiles. And from the altitude from 40 kilometers till 100 kilometers, where outer space starts, it has hypersonic glide vehicles. So this is one big difference. I don't have to tell the readers or the viewers. 3 domains versus 6 domains. Second distinctive feature, I'm perhaps repeating myself, the PLA will only fight at the operational level. It need not get down to the tactics, like the Indian military, which will be fighting at the tactical level of war. Let me explain this with an example. Now everybody today is talking of the drones. Drones have come in warfare in a big way. But when the Indian military will be looking at the PLAF fighting with PLA, it can't be looking at small smart drones. It has to look for long endurance drones, because everything is at the campaign level. The requirements are entirely different. And the third is, as far as the PLA is concerned, there will be no front line. There will be no front line of the battlefield or the combat zone, because it has a capability to operate across the entire combat zone with precision and without collateral damage. So this is the what we call the character of war. Now let's see, as far as the two medium powers are concerned, India and Pakistan, because obviously when the war will happen, Pakistan will also join the game. It will be different, because both fight at the tactical level, which means as far as the Indian military is concerned, it has to brush up and train something it has not been doing for the last 33 years. It has been involved in counter-terror operations. It's basics about warfare, conventional warfare. And the basics are, when we talk of conventional warfare for the Indian Army, it is combined arms operations. And when we talk about the Indian Air Force, we are talking about the core competency, which is like the core competency of the Army is combined arms operation. There lies in the range, there lies in lethality, flexibility and accuracy. So it's an entirely different thing they have to do. And plus, of course, as I said in my last video, Kashmir itself will be a battlefield. So the counter-terror operations will also exist. This is the character of war. Now let's move on to the third one, the nature of war. I've heard all chiefs and all army commanders, every senior officer say, nature of war, it doesn't change. Why? Because what is nature of war? Nature of war is what a war is. War is about violence. War is about bloodshed. So we all have heard earlier army chief Naravne say, nature of war does not change. It will. No, it has changed. How it has changed is, if we have followed the PLA, in January 2022, the directive was given by Xi Jinping, who is the commander-in-chief, to the PLA, that the strategic deterrence will have, besides nuclear weapons, space and cyber as well. So when I say the nature of war is changing, is changing very fast, what it means is that the PLA already has a capability to move away from the combat zone where there is violence and where there is bloodshed, and it can create chaos through the cyber and its counter space capabilities in the civilian areas or the mainland of India. It can create total chaos there. In fact, it has the capability through that chaos to directly strike the cognitive capabilities of the political leadership of India. This is called cognitive confrontation, which can lead to cognitive defeat even before they have come to the combat zone. It is another matter that once artificial intelligence comes in a big way, something that I have explained in my last book, The Last War, then there will be more robotics, but this is perhaps, I would say, in my estimation, about 2 or 3 years away. Not with the PLA, but overall. If the PLA is to fight with the Indian military, it can very well try it now here, it can do it here because it gets the first mover advantage against its main adversary, as I explained, the US military. So the nature of war is changing, and we have to understand this also. And my last thing is competing defense industrial complexes. Look, here is the bottom line on this. You cannot expect to win a war with an adversary, a major power, which has a vibrant defense industry and which has a surge capability. You lose the war there straight. And for all the talk of Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense, the fact of the matter is India today still is a biggest arms importer of the world. Imagine a combat between India and China. Rest be assured, the operational support from Russia may or may not come. In fact, I would argue it will not come. So therefore, see the case of Ukraine. What is going on with this new front which has opened up? Now the Americans are worried that can they support the two fronts, the two wars that are going on. So this is the importance. So it is about time that India understands that there is no point in deceiving itself with some, Atmanirbhar Bharat. This is a subject by itself which I will deal. But we have to get this tag away of being the major arms importer if we ever think of fighting a war with China. Now in my third video, equally important, I'll be talking about the operational scenario, the security scenario, both at the global level as well as the regional level, which will determine whether the threats that I have explained in my first video, they escalate into war. Thank you so much.